What's up, guys? Welcome back to Old School Arctic Cats. Today we're continuing on to the monumental build that we started a week ago. Got a little bit of work ahead of us. We already started taking the motor out. We changed out the skid already. I am now fitting up a 151 Mountain Cat 900 skid that we bought. I got a 2-inch finger track that we're going to be fitting up and putting on. The challenging part about this is none of the holes quite line up. This tunnel and everything was obviously made for a 136. We're now putting a 151. I didn't want to just do simple track extensions because I feel like that creates a weak spot, so I wanted a whole new skid. I am now starting to build some brackets, some down brackets and everything that I got to weld and rivet to the tunnel. Hopefully get all the geometry and everything correct. This is what we're going to be focused on today. Hopefully we can get the track and the skid all buttoned up and get this thing going. As you guys can see, this was the original mounting hole and the bracket from the factory. And this is the one that I've kind of templated and starting to fit up a little bit. The center to center on the holes on this skid is a little bit longer, a little bit wider than the original skid that was put in this sled. We're just going to try and get it I want to weld it to the original bracket for support because it is steel. And then I need to rivet that steel plate right to the aluminum tunnel. That should make it rigid enough so it can handle bumps and handle all the flex and all the torque that might be put under this while we're riding it. So what we're doing is I got that bracket. It's obviously a lot bigger than I needed, but I wanted to have more material to trim. I think I have the position and everything that I want. I tried to get the track and everything, or the skid, parallel with the trailer so that when it sits on the ground, it's nice and flat. I'm going to trace the inside edge. I'm going to cut this bracket. Then I'm going to lay the bracket I just cut on top of the other one and use it as a template. And then we should be able to start getting it welded into the chassis and do some riveting. Then I can pull the skid out, and then I'm going to install the drivers, the track, and hopefully everything bolts back up. But I'll get this traced and then we'll cut it. Okay, now we got our parts. I'm going to get these back onto the chassis. I'm going to clamp them. I'm actually going to bolt this right to the skid and have that help me hold it in place while I get my MIG welder, and I'll get in there and start doing some tacks and different things. Okay, so I got to get it lined back up with my hole. Start the bolt. We really could use a shop about now, guys, so help me out. This time of year, you just never know if it's going to be raining, sunshine, blizzard. You just never know. We got it fit up. We had to trim just a little bit more. We have it tacked into place. We're going to weld this thing up solid. Welding in a windstorm, you guys. Nothing like Utah weather. 1 minute it's summer, next minute it's snowstorm. This is awesome. Okay, so we got this other bracket that we're going to use to support that mounting bracket so we have more surface to rivet to. This will give the tunnel a little bit of support as well. It'll kind of brace it. So as we're doing this project, we're looking for functionality at first. We got to make sure all of these systems are in place and are functional. Then we'll take it apart and clean it up and make it a really nice, presentable piece of work. Piece of work? That sounds dumb. Piece of work. I don't know how to talk. we're gonna get this all welded up, bolted up, make sure it's functional, and then we'll take it apart piece by piece. We'll making sure after we make sure all the systems are working, then we'll take it apart, polish it up, make it really nice and presentable. So here we go. So now that we got the bracket all welded up, I got some steel rivets. We're going to rivet the bracket to the tunnel, and that should make everything a lot more rigid and a lot more tough. Alright, so we got the bracket all bolted on. I'm going to now get the skid bolts out of the front. We're going to go grab the finger track out of my shed, start putting this thing together. We're going to put the drivers in, bolt up the chain case. I'm going to replace the bearing on that driver. Arctic cats are notorious that bearing goes out and it shears off the speedometer key. I'm going to replace that and do a preemptive strike and just make sure there's a fresh bearing. Get this bolted together, and then we'll be able to put the skid in, and hopefully everything lines up and we can rotate the track a little bit by hand and make sure everything's going to clear. All right, I've been storing the finger track in the cat house. I built this shed last summer just for this purpose of having all my sleds in one spot. Still a few things I'm working out. No one appreciates the cat house quite like my wife. She loves me having all these snowmobiles, I'm sure. It's therapy. Thundercat never lets me down. Always looks nice. Happy to see it. What would really be a bad day, I don't care if I fall, but if this track hits one of my sleds, bad day. You guys can see I got snowmobile suspension, a couple tracks up here. I bought it from a guy down in Salt Lake. It's kind of a blessing in disguise. I was looking for a 144 finger track. The guy assured me it was a 144. Get to his house. It was late. It was like 10 o'clock at night when I finally got there. Didn't measure it. Just bought it. Got it home. I'm like, this kind of fitted up against the snowmobile that I was going to put it on. I'm like, this thing looks a lot longer than a 144. So then I measured it and did the math. And sure enough, the 151. Kind of a cool track. It's got all these holes in it, so it's been ported. I think they call that porting on these tracks. And makes them a little lighter. Hopefully it doesn't affect the structural integrity, but track's in pretty good shape for what it is. Like I said, I don't care if I fall. I just don't want to drop this on one of my sleds. Whew! Got it. Nothing like a whole bunch of fingers in your face. You guys can see all these holes. They go through and do that. I think it does a couple things. Number one, it allows it kind of allows more snow into your tunnel, which is kind of a negative thing, but it does make it a little bit lighter. I don't know. We'll just have to see how it performs. There's a couple fingers missing. These tracks are really, really good for hard pack surfaces. They bite really hard in spring type conditions. They're not very good in powder. They trench, but hard pack trail, grass. This is a real good aggressive track. They use these a lot in the Remshaw circuit, the snowmobiling hill climb circuit that they do out here in the West. And they were just second to none when it come to hooking up on icy surfaces. Brett Rasmussen would run these. Rick Ward ran these. The Archibalds would run them. The Zollingers, Ryan Zollinger, all those guys had finger tracks, and they don't make them anymore. So when you find them in decent shape, they're a good thing to buy and just have in your back pocket. So especially for projects like this 1050. Okay, so what we're doing is we're replacing the bearing on this shaft. I thought I had a brand new one, but this one's for inside the chain case. It has this little gasket on there. The opposite side of the chain case has a locking collar. Unfortunately, I thought I had one, but I don't. So I found another used good one. But what happens is this collar will slide over this lip, and when you rotate this collar onto this bearing shaft, it puts it on a bind and secures it and locks it on really tight. And then there's a set screw. See, they have this hole right here that you use a punch that you can smack, and that seats it. And then the set screw, tighten it down, and that will keep that locking collar from backing off. But there's a speedometer cable that goes inside this shaft. It's unique. It's made out of cable. It's braided, and it gets fat in the middle, so you can't just push it all the way in and lose it. It goes about halfway and gets stuck. But this is designed to shear off when this bearing starts wobbling around and it's not true anymore. It shears this key off, and then your speedometer housing won't work and won't let your speedometer read anymore, and it indicates that this bearing's bad, and it lets you know. So a lot of you guys with older Arctic cats that your speedometer quit working, I'd say 9 times out of 10 this drive bearing's bad on your sled. So snowmobile tracks are directional. They're designed and engineered to perform at its peak at a certain rotation. This one has this arrow right here, and that arrow indicates the forward motion that this track should be in. So I'm going to make sure that I follow that arrow and put it in the proper way. With these cleats being so stiff, running it backwards could break the cleats off prematurely. Okay, so we're going to thread this track underneath this tunnel so we can get the drivers in it. These tracks are pretty heavy and pretty awkward, but we have the direction going the way we want. This is awesome, you guys. I have wanted to make this motor find a permanent home for a long time, so this is really exciting for me. I've done quite a few track changes. They're all got its unique challenges, whether you have a driver or something that just won't quite line up or something, but for the most part, everyone's got their tricks to doing stuff. So we got the driver in place. This is that speedometer key we were just talking about. Threads into this. It doesn't thread in, but it's square, and has kind of a square hole that pushes in as far as you can. This is the speedometer housing, and it has that same type of square hole on this side. And again, when this bearing goes bad, it shears off that key and lets you know that this bearing's ready to be replaced. This key's pretty unique because it has some flex with it, so it can tolerate a little bit of weirdness as you're driving the sled. Torque and different things plays a factor in it, but it's a really interesting key that they came up with. So this is where we got to on this video. Is we got the brackets welded and riveted and fabricated. We got the finger track on, got the driver on. I'm gonna keep working on this throughout the week. I should have the gears put back in here. and the skid back in place. So I'm going to rotate it and make sure that it's free. So when you guys see the next video, that part will be done. Then we can get down to the exciting part and start putting in that 1050, wiring it, getting all the motor mounts and everything lined up, start working on some clutching. But appreciate you guys watching. Comment in the video if you guys want to, what you guys think of finger tracks. I want to know if you guys, what the pros and cons are of a finger track. Maybe you never heard of one before, but I sure like them. Hook up really good. Catch you guys on the next one. We got it. It's doing it perfectly.
Tighten up the track and we're good.